Hello again everybody, it's Kevin Firefox and we are back in EvE Online for another ship fitting tutorial. Today we're going to look at the shield tanking ships instead of the armor tanks like in the last video. So let's hop right in. Today we're going to be fitting a Cyclone, which is a Mimitar battle cruiser. It's got a little more slots than the cruisers, a hell of a lot more than the frigates, and not quite as many as the battleship. So let's get into this real quick. So I basically just stripped this ship. I've already had it fit before, that's why it's got the rigs in it already. We'll go over the rigs in a minute. I'm not going to go into as much detail on this video as I did on the armor tanking, because you should already know the difference between high slots, low slots, mid slots, and all that kind of fun stuff. So I'm not going to go into as much detail on there. It's going to be more of a theory of fitting the ship. Okay, so let's get started. First thing you got to do when you look at building any ship is open up the information behind it and read about the damn ship. So this one gets a bonus to heavy missile and heavy assault missile launcher rate of fire and shield boost amount. We're not going to worry about this roll bonus stuff. That's basically if you want to put fleet control modules up here to help your fleet out. Like I said earlier, I am more of a solo PvPer. I like to go and hunt in the faction war area, which is why on the Thorax video I had an afterburner instead of a micro warp drive, because in faction warfare they jump right in on you most of the time. So, okay. So this is a solo PvP fit Cyclone. That's what we're looking for. And since it gives bonuses to your heavy missiles and heavy assault missile launchers, we're going to be using missiles. And because it gives a bonus to your shield boost, we're going to be active tanked once again. Okay, so let's start off in the high slots. With the Cyclone here, you can have 2 turret hard points and 5 launcher hard points. So we're going to go ahead and throw some heavy assault launchers on here. So let's fit these real quick. Alright, so I've got the 5 up there. That's as many as I can have. I can't put any more missile launchers on there. But now I have a choice. I could fit 2 additional turret hardpoints up here. So I'm going to have 2 guns up here in the high slots. You're not going to get a whole ton of DPS out of 2 guns. It'll be more than what you've got with just the 5 missile launchers, but it's not going to be a whole lot more. So instead, I'm going to do something that I think is very, very useful in PvP. I'm going to throw some newts into the high slots that I got left. Now, because of the fitting restrictions that I went over in the last video about power grid and CPU, I can't fit mediums or larges in that slot because I prefer to use my power grid in other places on this build, which we'll get into in a minute. But I can fit 2 small energy newts on there. Now, an energy newt basically sucks the capacitor out of the other ship. There's a similar module called a Nostrofu. I think I pronounced that right. If not, take care of me in the comment section. The difference between a newt and a Nos is that a newt will suck a capacitor completely dry. It'll take the enemy capacitor down to 0%. Whereas a Nos will suck the capacitor out of the other ship and put it in your capacitor. So it's like a vampire newt, okay? It sucks the capacitor out of the other ship, puts it in yours, but it'll only take the enemy ship's capacitor down to as low as yours is. So unless you're sitting at 0, you're not going to completely drain the other guy's capacitor. So I prefer newts in PvP. In PvE, the Nosses are very nice indeed. So let's go ahead and fit these to the ship. I was only able to fit smalls, but these will suck a frigate dry of Cap real quickly. So I got that in there. It's a little added bonus. And let's see just how much each one of these will take it out. There we go. I'll take away 55 gigajoules. There we go. Every cycle time, which is every 6 seconds. So every 6 seconds, because I have these 2 on there, I'm taking out 110 gigajoules of their capacitor. It adds up over time. Okay, so there's our high slots. We've got our guns or missiles, excuse me. We've got our newts. Let's move on to the mid slots. Now, it's a PvP ship. So the very first thing you need to put on there is your warp scrambler or disruptor. This is a short range fit. The heavy assault missiles are short range missiles, so we went with a scrambler, which again is short range, but it also takes out their micro warp drive. And since I'm slowing them down, I want to make sure I'm faster than them, so I put my micro warp drive on here instead of an afterburner. This will work more than just in faction warfare. and it's short range, so you've got to be fast. And most Mimitar ships, speed is good to them, so that's why we went with a micro warp drive on this. Once you're in range and you're shooting somebody, you've got them webbed and scrammed, you're going to want to turn your micro warp drive off, because A, it sucks your capacitor dry, and B, it blows up your signature radius. So, okay, we got our warp scrambler, we've got our speed mod on there. So now we need to make sure we have some shield boosting capability, because that's the bonus for this ship. Now the good thing about this fit is that this is an extra large shield booster, which is a hell of a lot more effective than the medium, and it's even more effective than the large. So the extra large, it's designed to fit on battleships. It takes up a ton of CPU and power grid, and you can see just by looking at these lines whenever I put it on there, it takes a lot. And as you can see, my capacitor went from depleting in 2 minutes and 40 seconds to in 25 seconds. So it takes a lot of everything from this ship. This ship is designed around that module right there. As it sits right now, it repairs 854 hit points every 5 seconds, which is fairly good. Fairly good. I have 6,300 hit points on this ship, so it's not as good as a Thorax's dual rep yet. So we got two problems. We've got the capacitor problem, and we have not enough shield points being repaired. So let's take care of the shields first. Now this is a particle field magnifier, which basically increases the amount of hit points. See, like we just went up to 1,100 just by placing that on there. So we went from 854 to 1110 just by putting that module on there. So that's good. Now we're doing roughly 1/6 of it instead of, considerably less than that. I'm not about to do the math on that. But we still have the problem of only 25 seconds of cap, so we've got to put a cap booster on there. Now with the cap booster and the charge, we've got another 35 seconds of time. But, as I said earlier, you turn that off, you're up to 55 seconds. You turn these off, you're up to 1 minute and 5. So not everything has to be turned on all the time, and unless you're just getting melted, you'll never run this thing constantly. You're going to do what's called pulsing it. So basically that means you just click it once, run a cycle, and then turn it off for a while as you're taking incoming damage. So 1 minute in PvP is fairly good cap stability wise. It's not ideal, but it'll get the job done. So we've got our damage, we've got our newts, we've got our point, we've got our speed, we've got our shield and cap boosting. So let's move on to the bottom and let's make sure we're doing a hell of a lot more damage. That's the good thing about a shield rep ship, shield tanked ship, is you've got all the lows to do whatever you want with. You don't have to worry about tanking in the lows, and you don't have to worry about using all your mids for your points, your speed, and all that kind of stuff. So you can really play around with their lows, and you can get a lot of damage out of it. So let's go ahead and fill the lows with ballistic control systems, which increase the damage output of your missile launchers. And every ship I've ever flown has had a damage control 2 on it. I mean, it's standard fitting. Whoa, oh, look at that. I don't have enough CPU. Okay, that's a problem. Luckily, there's modules for that, like anything. A coprocessor 2 will increase the total amount of CPU. Look at the CPU right now. Right now, total amount is 675.9. Put that in there, and it jumps up to 743, which means I can now online my damage control. And my resistances just shot up. So there you go. So my resistances are pretty shit. In general, the larger your ship, the worse your resistances are. That's been my experience. I don't know how true it is, but that's what passes the sniff test. So I already have these rigs fitted, but if I didn't, my EM would be a hell of a lot lower than this. Yeah, a lot lower because I have 2 EM. Well, it'll thermal, excuse me. Thermal EM. Yeah, okay, I do have 2 EMs on here. So this would be a lot less, and this would be a lot less. But with these rigs on here, it increases it. Now I could have fit rigs in there that will increase the shield rep amount even more. I I fit this 5 years ago, I think, by the name of the ship. It was originally named Ike whenever I logged in. I changed it to Harvey for obvious reasons, but there you go. Now let's throw some ammo on there and see just what kind of DPS we're getting out of this ship. There we go. We're getting 430 DPS, which is okay. It's not stunning. And 1100 alpha damage, which is what every time you shoot your missiles, that's how much damage you're doing. The DPS is how much over every second. So clearly you don't shoot your gun every second. So there. That explains that, I hope. And you've always got to make sure you got some drones in there. So throw some drones in there, and that automatically increases the DPS calculation to 548 DPS. That's not terrible. You'll be able to melt through most cruisers with that, especially if it's an active tank cruiser and you've got your newts on there. You're going to win that battle. It's also fairly effective at battle cruiser level. Battleships, you're going to want to have a friend. So that's it. That is how you active tank a Cyclone battle cruiser. Now, kind of like I did in the Thorax video, I'm going to open up a couple of other ships to show you kind of how you can do it on other size ships as well. So let's see what I've got fit up in here. I got some Merlins. Okay, let's go down here. Down here to a Merlins. Now this ship is Faction War. It's designed around Faction War. It's cheap, as you can see. The whole thing, even rigged, is 4.4 million-esque. You can lose these all day, every day, and be fine with it. That's like one tick out of a level 4 mission. So it's designed. Everything is T1 best named, or close to it. Probably the cheapest in a lot of cases. So it's rigged, but these small rigs are pretty dang cheap. It costs roughly the amount of the hull of the ship. Maybe even a little less. I haven't looked at the market lately on it. So this has a few different modules on it that we need to go over. The highs are pretty standard. You got your ion cannons up there, blasters, whatever. And again, I got the afterburner because it's Faction War fit, so it just works better in that environment. You don't got to worry about getting scrammed and losing your micro warp drive, and the enemy is right on top of you pretty much all the time. Got my warp scrambler on there, which is a standard. I'm able to fit my web because woohoo! But that doesn't leave me a whole lot of room to play around with my shield tank, which the ship is shield tank. Luckily, CCP was nice enough to come up with this ancillary shield booster, which is kind of like how the armor tank did. One did it with the nano paste. This uses Capt charges instead, which is a lot cheaper, but they're a lot heavier too. So you put your Capt booster charges in there, and it'll burn through a Capt booster instead of your capacitor every time it runs a cycle, which is nice because it frees up another mid slot, whereas used to be you had to have a Capt booster and a shield booster. Now you're kind of combining the two into one item. So the good news is I have 7 charges that I can use that'll repair 146 hit points. Not stellar, but when you only have 600 hit points on your shields, it doesn't suck that bad. And then again in the low slot, I've got all my mag stabs and a tracking enhancer to kind of help me track the faster ships. So you can see again the whole idea of active shield tanking. It levels between the small, big, and the frigate size, the cruiser size, and the battleship size ships. I don't believe I have any shield tank battleships right now that I can show you. No, but much like I did on the armor tank, there are also buffer tank ships you can do with the shield tank ship. So much like you did on the armor, where you just threw as many hit points as possible into the ship, you kind of do the same thing with your shield tank ships. This is a PvE fit, so it doesn't have any of the warp scrams or webs or anything like that on there. And it's a passive shield tank, so instead of actively regenerating points, I passively recharge them with modules like the shield recharger and some of these rigs, which are field purgers. So over time, this thing repairs its shield points on its own, which is kind of a nice bonus you can get with shields, which you can't get in any armor tank ship, which is why in general I prefer shield tank ships for PvE, because I'm not expending money to repair my ship that's going into PvP, or PvE, excuse me, any combat. So this one's got shield extenders, resistance amplifiers, and then afterburner, and it's got a lot of hit points on the shields. Almost 14,000 hit points on the shield, opposed to the Cyclone that had what, 6,000 or 8,000, I believe. So it's got it can take a lot more damage, and it will slowly recharge it over time. So there you go. That's just a brief and quick basic overview of how to shield fit a ship. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. If you really enjoyed it, do hit subscribe. And don't forget to take a look at my sponsor at the end of the video. Don't forget to leave a comment in the comment section below about any kind of tutorial video you'd like to see in the future. Thanks for watching. This is Captain Firefox, and I'm signing out. Catch you guys next time.